Добрий день, з вами Ольга.
Good afternoon, my name is Olga Tomanova, and I want to thank everybody who joins Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's day 345 of the full-scale invasion of the Russian aggressor in our land, and I want to thank the representatives of all the mass media who tell the world the truth about our heroic resistance. And joining us online right now is Maria Mezentseva, the member of the Parliament of Ukraine, the representative of the permanent delegation of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. Good afternoon, Ms. Maria. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Ms. Maria, the summit Ukraine-EU has started. We've seen the first news from the summit, from what is the program, who arrived, and what are the first impressions of our European partners. Well, and yet another time, Ukraine offered very interesting agenda for the changes of the tactics of the diplomacy, and for changing of diplomacy. The summit was planned for the end of the last year, and not in Kyiv but in Brussels, but we are happy that it's our capital who's hosting the historic summit of Ukraine-EU, and is the first summit of the European Union, which happens, well, with the third country, in that third country during the aggression, during the war. So in security terms, it's very important. I mean, the arrival of European commissioners headed by Ursula von der Leyen, who announced the new support package, which includes training of our military, which includes the military material and equipment, which includes microfinancial aid, and it's supported by the European Parliament, which has all the freedom and will to call for actions, to call European government, which is European Commission, call them for new resolution and call them to expedite the military support in terms of supply of military equipment as per specifically identified articles. I mean, the air defense capabilities, the heavy material, the tanks, and the armored vehicles, because now all the world is convinced about who's Russia and their ability and will to use the high-speed missiles like X-101, which hit a residential building in Dnipro recently and took away a lot of lives of our citizens. And one of the matters still on the agenda is that, which is still discussed during the summit of this high level, is the discussion of continuation, extension of the term of residence of our citizens in the countries of European Union, is the matter of reintegration in terms of equipment, in terms of right to work, right to employment, because we know that it's about 7 million internally displaced persons who are currently staying in the countries of European Union, who are very well educated, mostly women with children, who are economically active, very active, and they get involved to stabilization of economies of our partners in European Union, and their return becomes one of the main top priority strategies for our country. And those matters are already being worked through. I mean, the problems they're facing, and there is the intergovernment working group that I am happy to be head of, jointly with the Minister of Social Policy and our main representative Ms. Stefanishina. Obviously, it's the president who sets the new pace, just like always. We remember, like back on the fourth day of the full-scale invasion, there was an application for candidacy status submitted, which was supported by 27 heads of the government of the European Union, headed by our friend Charles Michel. And there was a roadmap extended which included 7 items, and Ukrainian parliament got actively involved in that process immediately. Well, there may be some matters arising on the way on their implementation, but we do not leave our cooperation with the European Council. We're still active in our cooperation with EU in this regard. Recently, Mr. Lubinets, the Commissioner for Human Rights, was finishing his tour around the EU, and his tour covered the discussion of those items of the roadmap. And let's not forget our main document, the association agreement, to which the Office of President still works on. It's still in their focus. It's 70% completed, and the Committee for European Integration, the meeting of Committee for European Integration just ended half an hour ago, and we discussed 10 more legislative drafts which are necessary to implement the agreement. One of such drafts was about the exemption for import of night vision devices and drones for our incredible defense forces of Ukraine, which will be used further on for our protection against a Russian aggressor. So any initiatives that incorporate military matters, they are always making, or like our partners to make exemptions for those types of products which are top priority for our military. So we hope and we believe that victory is coming closer, but thanks to this example we can see how flexible can be a bureaucratic system which seemed to be non-flexible at all just recently. When we talk about the help, about the aid to be provided to us, obviously still on agenda is the matter of power supply. We see the number of generators which were funded thanks to the approval of funds allocation by our colleagues from Europe, but now the whole world sees how the dependency on Russian gas and Russian oil, how they still can keep financing this brutal war which takes lives of the innocent citizens and assist to the war crimes. It's about more than 62,000 of such war crimes were already documented. They were all covered by one war aggression crime, which European Parliament was ready to react. We've heard discussions that it can be done in the post-victory period after the war, but we break this proposal. We cannot postpone justice. The justice should be happening every day for both war crimes and one big crime of aggression which was planned, which was executed by Putin and his team not only in 2022, but starting from 2014, which was confirmed recently by the European Court for Human Rights just last week. Miss Maria, for us, for every Ukrainian, it's very important the things you mentioned, humanitarian, military, and financial aid, but another matter everybody keeps track of is our steps on the way to European Union. So what's your forecast? When, in your opinion, it may happen, when it may become real? Well, you know, nobody can say the exact date, exact month. We would like us as the Ukrainian parliamentaries, we would just like to work in one cadence. I mean, on the year, next year is the year of elections. We would like to expand the number of adherents, which we have to work on every day. I would like in one cadence, which is 5 years long, for European parliamentarians to become the representatives in European Parliament, but it may happen even earlier. Ukraine has already shown how it breaks all the leadership stereotypes, and for President Zelensky is the application for candidacy in European Union and in NATO. And some may ask if war was the main reason for that, but I would say no. Back in 2019, our colleagues were voting for the draft laws, which the previous sessions were not capable of voting for. So now it's a whole different practice in terms of association agreement. 7 items are already fulfilled. There should be an evaluation in October. However, the experience already shows that European Commission is already prepared to give us feedback on all the 7 items in the spring already. So we see this direct obligation or commitment, as they call it, in terms of finance. If we were not taken seriously, I'm sure President von der Leyen would not announce this new aid package in amount of 450 million euro, and now we're getting even more financial aid as the candidate. Obviously, the strategic partnership is not only going on in those directions that we just mentioned, but it's biomethane, synthetic gases, and hydrogen. We're just making new steps that show the world and European Union, European family, how we can get accustomed to the new circumstances, not only within the framework of COVID that we went through together, but with the fact that the enemy is just a couple kilometers away from every Ukrainian, and if the forecasts of some of our European colleagues were to become true, this enemy could be in the threshold of Europe itself. So it's no mystery to anybody that the bureaucratic mechanisms are still in place, but I want to emphasize for the TV spectators that it's always like that, that the entry of the new state to the European Union is always the political resolution. So all the Europeans will decide. It will be a referendum. We see the reaction of all the Ukrainians all across Ukraine. It's about 90% support in some regions of Ukraine to join the European Union, and is the first time when our partners started negotiating the aid, not in some remote perspective, but it's like we expect the supplies of the military equipment, of the new weapons real shortly. We have very positive news about the potential cooperation, and our next task is aviation and the fixed-wing aircraft, F-16. If we were able to receive everything Ukraine needs for joint protection of our values and our territory, it will cost cheaper for all the Union than postponing the facts, continuing to talk more rather than acting. So this is what we count on within these next days, when such a number of European commissioners was taking part in such discussion with the president of Ukraine, with the government of Ukraine. So everything is already on paper, and we just need to implement it. We have questions on the floor, please. Good afternoon, Galina Strashko, Ukrinform. I would like to ask about draft laws that were approved by the government last year. The representatives of European Commission expressed certain remarks about the law on national minorities, about the oligarchization and the constitutional court, and I think that's it. So what's your plan for the further work on those laws? What was their assessment of the European partners? So yeah, thank you for the question. We're still waiting for the final assessment by the European colleagues. The law on national minorities was communicated to our European partners. Its details were communicated by Mr. Dmytro Lubinets. We see no critical nature of those remarks. If we remember, the law was voted on the 13th of December. It was peddled mostly by the representatives of two countries. It's Hungary and Romania. We are ready to explain. I think there were 22 working teams which included the representatives of those national minorities and the governments of those countries. So we have to see the real remarks that were still not provided for further potential work on them. But as I mentioned before, the Ukrainian Parliament, the office of Ms. Stefanishina, the office of the President, the tasks that we were setting for the end of the last year, they were all fulfilled. And as you've seen yesterday, Ms. Ursula already handed certain documents to Mr. Zelensky, and he joked that they don't wait as much as 9 volumes of our responses about the questioning about our candidacy status. So there is nothing tragic about that. We keep working in the working groups with the co-authors and with the parliamentary committees. And I will remind you that recently the resolution which was taken by the Parliament of Europe, the additional subcommittees and their heads for Euro integration, they keep working to coordinate this work. Ms. Maria, thank you for joining our broadcast. Thank you for all the fresh and actual information. Dear colleagues, I'm reminding you, joining us online was Maria Mezentseva, the member of the Parliament of Ukraine, head of the permanent delegation of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. So bear with us, trust in our armed forces, and glory to Ukraine.